It's okay?
Let me check. You can try talking. No, 1 second, it's still not.
It's not loading.
Okay, can you try talking?
Hello, 1, 2, 3. Testing. It's okay? Okay, perfect. Let's begin then. Hi everyone, my name is Damjan. I'm the lead developer at Apillon, and I'm going to be presenting to you a solution that we've built in collaboration with Oasis here called Embedded Wallets. First of all, a bit of introduction about Apillon for those of you who don't know. It's a Web3 development platform, and at Apillon we're actively working on improving the developer experience and user experience for users who may not be familiar with Web3 technologies. So we do that by building services on top of existing blockchains and making them in the centralized Web3 way. So for developers, we have our cloud platform, SDK, CLI, and API. So they have a familiar experience which they already have with the centralized platforms. And for users, we have few-click solutions that they can use on our dashboard. And this solution that I'm going to be presenting today is, we believe, a very great step towards improving the user experience for people who are not yet into Web3 and to easily onboard a large amount of people onto Web3. Let's have a quick recap about wallets and seed phrases. So I'm sure all of you here have some kind of wallet, either a hot wallet or a cold wallet or hardware wallet. And we're all familiar with why we have them, right? Ever since dApps exist, we had to create a wallet for ourselves and use that to interact with the dApps because under the hood, there's blockchain transactions happening and we need to sign them using our wallet. But what happens when there's regular users who are maybe not that tech savvy or not into crypto yet, who want to use an application on the internet, and then they realize they need to go through this process of setting up their wallet, learning about what a wallet is in the first place, then securing their seed phrase, writing down them on a piece of paper, and so on. You know the process already. We can agree that we acknowledge all the benefits of that here, but what happens when regular users want to do that? We cannot have the same expectations of people who just want to use on the internet and need to go through this whole process, which can be a large friction and a large barrier of entry for other users. This is where Apillon shook hands with Oasis. I think there's something wrong with the presentation. Should be maybe the resolution, okay? So this is the point where Apillon shook hands with Oasis, and we decided to bring matters into our own hands and build a solution which will allow developers of dApps to create wallets for their users privately, where it's fully non-custodial and it's sort of acting as a wallet as a service. So anybody who gets onboarded on a dApp can get their own wallet and interact much like if they would bring their own wallet with them, like, for example, a browser extension or similar, any kind of wallet. The solution is called embedded wallets. So it's called that way because the user does not need to bring any external plugin or dependency with them. So there's no browser extensions, there's no mobile apps that the user needs to have. It's fully embedded and integrated into the dApp that the user is going to be using. So this is a very seamless onboarding process where the user does not need to make any external and additional interactions before using the dApp. And this is, there are no private keys to manage, of course, by the user. This supports any kind of chain, so it can be EVM, Substrate, Bitcoin, basically what the developer decides to support. And another great benefit is that this supports gasless transactions, much like account abstraction. So the developer can decide to sponsor any transactions made by the user and even creating the wallet for them, which can be paid for by the developer. So let's talk about the security of embedded wallets. How do the passkeys of the wallets get secured? there's one keyword here to use, and that is passkeys. So passkeys are like a credential that gets stored on your device, either your mobile phone or your laptop or similar, any device you're using. And they're secured by using your biometric data, which means either scan of your face, fingerprint, and so on. So the only way that the passkey gets created is by using your biometric data, and the only way it is retrieved is the same. So that means that it's highly secure and cannot be used by anybody else other than you. This brings, besides the inherent security of passkeys, also other benefits, such as, for example, you can use the same wallet on different devices. So let's say, for example, what happens now when you get a new phone or you get a new laptop? The only way to use the same wallet you had before is to go and look for the seed phrase or private key and then import it into the new device, right? But now we're using this solution. You can just use the passkey on the different device and you'll get the same wallet. So if I have my passkey on my phone, I can just scan a QR code if I get a new laptop, and then I'll be having the same wallet over there. And another great benefit, especially for users who are not so tech savvy, is that this is completely safe from phishing attacks. How? Because the passkey that gets created is directly tied to the domain where it was created, so the website where it was created. So for example, if I'm on Apillon.io and I create a passkey, then the same passkey can only be used on Apillon.io. It can never get retrieved on a different website. So if I get kind of tricked into using a clone of a website, then the same passkey would not work over there, and the user is not going to be able to get their wallet compromised in that way. Let's do a quick comparison to other reputable providers of similar solutions. We have Third Web, Dynamic, and Coinbase. The main point to make here is that our solution is fully decentralized by using the Oasis confidential blockchain, which is what Harry and Mateo already did a good job of explaining. So under the hood, a smart contract is created for every wallet that gets created, and the private key is stored in a secure way, which can never be obtained by anyone unless the user wants to export it themselves, which they have the option to. And we're gonna support multiple authentication methods, such as passkey or email verification if the user wants to choose to only use their email to get the wallet, or also a password if the user decides to do that, but it's not recommended. We will have the wallet scope made global, which means that if you create a wallet using our solution, then you're going to get always the same wallet for any time you use the same passkey. For example, the other providers give you only a single wallet per application, but using our solution, you will always get the same wallet, which even further increases the user experience, and you wouldn't need to manage multiple wallets for different dApps. And under the hood, how this works is like this. So there's a transaction that you need to sign, let's say, on the dApp, and you need to send it to the blockchain. So what happens is the transaction data gets created by the client, like usual. And then what happens is the transaction data gets sent to the smart contract belonging to your wallet. So the signing of the transaction using your private key always happens inside the smart contract, making it fully secure and happens in a fully encrypted way, and it can never get compromised in any way. If you imagine how a hardware wallet works, it's a similar concept, right? You don't expose the private key, you send the transaction data to the hardware wallet where it gets signed and sent back. Where here, there's no device, there's no hardware wallet or anything like that. There's a smart contract where the transaction data gets signed and sent back to the client, after which it gets propagated to the chain. And I've prepared for you a short demo recording here, just so you can get a feeling of how it may work in practice. So imagine this is a dApp where the user would need to interact with some blockchain. So what they use for signing in is just entering their email address. And after they enter the email address and confirm it, what happens then is that you get prompted to create a passkey. So this is the step where we verify our email. And after the email gets verified, based on your device, you'll get multiple options to create a passkey. So right now, because I'm using a Mac, I get the options to choose an iCloud keychain, which is like a password manager. I can scan the QR code you just saw with my phone, or I can use my Brave profile because I'm using a Brave browser. And now to create a passkey, all I need to do is just tap my fingerprint on my laptop. After that, the credential which got created now gets sent to the Sapphire chain, and the new wallet gets created for me under the hood, and just the wallet address gets sent to the application. And now, there we go, a wallet just got created for me, and I have the new wallet address that I just got. So let's see what it looks like now if I need to sign a message with my wallet. I click sign message, I see what I need to sign, I approve it, and now what happens is I just, again, need to tap my fingerprint and the message gets signed and sent to the client. And now finally, one more thing I'm gonna show is how it looks like to send a transfer on chain. So I'm using the Sapphire test network on here, and I'm pasting the wallet address and just choosing to send 1 Ether to that address. Now this is the transaction data that I need to verify, and then this gets sent after I again confirm using my passkey. Then it gets confirmed and sent to the smart contract. After it gets signed, gets sent back to the client, and then sent on chain. And after it gets propagated and confirmed after a few seconds, if I view the Explorer, we can see that the transaction got confirmed. And everything is according to what I expected. And we can see that it was also secured on the Oasis Sapphire network. Like what Harry mentioned before, we can see the lock happening, so it's fully end-to-end encrypted. It just got started from the beginning. An important point to make here is that we saw that the user saw their wallet address, they saw that they needed to sign a transaction, they got shown that they need to enter a wallet address and how much to transfer. But the important thing is that this does not need to get shown to the user at all, right? It can get fully abstracted away and hidden, so the user does not even need to know that they're interacting with any blockchain under the hood. All they need to know is that they just confirmed their email and created a passkey, and all they need to do to confirm is just present their fingerprint to the laptop, and that's it. The whole layer of blockchain technology can be fully hidden for the user. This is a QR code if you want to scan and sign up to our platform. The solution is going to be launching soon for anybody. Currently, it's in a closed beta phase. We're still doing some internal tests, but we're going to be launching it soon. And if you want to get early access, or if you need our support into integrating into your DApp, if you're interested, that's my email, and you can feel free to contact me. Or if anybody wants to see a live demo, I got my laptop with me. I'll be around. If you want to try it out for yourself, feel free to let me know. Other than that, that's it. Thank you for your attention. Damjan.
Damjan the Great.
Thank you.
Mike, Damjan, don't throw the mic.
Why not?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this is really like a great solution. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to be a minute. This is really like a great solution. And the crucial thing is, he mentioned, it abstracts away the whole blockchain part, but not in a way that, a lot of solutions do it, where you just take custody of the wallets, right, and make it simple, right? It keeps the crypto ethos, right? The wallet is still non-custodial. User has full access. They can extract their private key from Sapphire, import it into a different wallet, and then use it as they would, in MetaMask or whatever, right? So I think that's a crucial part. We have a lot of solutions out there, that use passkeys in combination with MPC structures, right? But the MPC holders of those shards, right, of the MPC solutions are still some entities, right, that have that control. And with us, we really want to strive to provide that decentralized, non-custodial nature that brought us into the crypto space, and we want to continue as we move forward. Yeah, and I think now we have Marco. Are you up? I think you're up now. Yeah, join me on stage here.
Isn't it Marco's time or not?
Yeah.
Well, passing the mic to Marco, our head of AI. Go for it.
Let me close the other.
Who's biting my microphone? Feel free to take a seat. I think we can all go.
Let's move a little bit closer because there's not going to be any presentations more.
And we're missing one person. So maybe we leave the outside chair empty so she can join.
Give me 1 second, Marco, please.
Sure. Oh, does it bother you? Yeah?
It's gonna need.
Okay.
Just turn it off. Yeah, turn it off. I think that's good.
No.
Okay. Apologies for the rudimentary solution, but I need it for the live stream. Nice. Super good. I love it.
Does it work?
Hello, hello.
Okay, I think we can get going. We're still missing one person, but Calanthia from Masa will be here shortly, and then she'll just join us on stage. So one more AI panel. I think we've all heard a couple, but that is the hype, and we still have some interesting insights to get out of it. We have a pretty interesting lineup of speakers. So let's quickly start with the intro round and then get into it.
Hello, my name's Mark, co-founder at Aethir. At Aethir, we build decentralized enterprise-grade GPU infrastructure for gaming and AI companies. What makes us maybe different to other DPINs in the compute space is that 100% of the compute that's contributed to Aethir's network obviously is not owned by Aethir, but it's all enterprise-grade. So there's around 43,000 GPUs within our network. Every single one of them is an enterprise-grade GPU, whether it's an H100, an A100, or any other kind of enterprise-grade piece of equipment that's relevant to kind of gaming and AI. We have the largest H100 stack in Web3 with over 3,000 H100 systems, again, distributed all over the world. So we have effectively done our best to build a decentralized GPU network that has kind of perfect synergy with the appetite of big enterprise customers.
Hello. Okay, we're good. Well, I guess it pays to be second.
Yeah.
Hey, folks. My name is Jarrod. I am our head of founder success at Near Protocol. For those who aren't familiar with Near, we are a layer 1 blockchain with deep roots in AI. Our founder, Ilya Palasukin, was one of the co-authors of the now famous paper, Attention is All You Need, which directly essentially laid out the transformer architecture, which really powers a lot of generative AI apps today, including ChatGPT. Over the past 6 months, our focus has really been on AI, particularly this concept of user-owned AI, which I'll share a little bit more about. But my day today, I get to work with all of our amazing founders, one of them being Calanthia here with Masa. So great to meet you all and look forward to the discussion.
Thanks for the mic. Thanks everyone for being here today. And so my name is Andrea, growth product manager at Ocean Protocol. The team at Ocean has always been passionate about IP management in general. So really leveraging the on-chain infrastructure for verifiability with a strong focus on data and data privacy particularly. So how do we unlock data for AI? How do we make it easily shareable with privacy such that you can train better models while still maintaining the privacy of the data themselves? So yeah, passing on to you.
Hey everyone, and sorry for running late, got trapped outside in the rain. It was kind of crazy. Thanks for having me here. My name is Calanthia. I'm co-founder of Masa. Masa is a decentralized AI network where people earn by contributing data to train AI model. Similar to Ocean Protocol, we have a passion for a fair AI world where data gets to play a very important part of it. Thanks for having me on the panel.
Of course. I think it works. You had some alpha to share before at an event, I heard you, so maybe you will share again afterwards. I'm Marco. I'm leading the AI efforts at Oasis. Oasis has one mic and a privacy-focused blockchain. And we have a confidential EVM, which is actually very interesting for lots of AI use cases. like Ocean knows very well because they built a platform where you post inference results on-chain, which is not possible on any other one. Something to involve the audience, because normally crypto events, we just look at the phone. The question is, what's your p-doom, the probability for doom resulting from AI? And just a raise of hands if it's above 0.
Ask if they know what it is.
Probability of doom coming from AI.
Human extinction from AI.
So who believes in human extinction from AI?
30-year time frame.
Percentage above 0.
I mean, at that point, arguably, everything is above 0. Like, what is the certainty now? We have no certainty of the future.
I mean,
That's just your opinion.
Are you asking me now too?
Everyone, yeah. Above 20? Above 50?
5-0?
Yeah.
I'm sitting at 50.
Okay. Do you want to explain?
Well, oh, geez, this is the first time I've been asked this question on a Web3 AI panel.
Yeah.
And I love it because I've been waiting for this for like years, right? So what do you think the average AI engineer, right? So they've done multiple quizzes. What do you think the average AI engineer working at a big AI company has their p-doom as? Like their probability is someone an expert in the space has as their p-doom. Do you think it's between 10 and 20, between 20 and 30, or between 40 and up? Put up your hand if you think it's between 10 and 20. A couple. Between 30 and 40. 40 and up. Okay, so it's 40 and up, right? So the average AI engineer thinks the likelihood that human extinction will occur from AI within the next 30 years is 40% or higher. It's pretty insane, right? So, oh, I just lost my little quiz. All right, Vitalik thinks it's a 10% chance. Elon Musk is like 20 to 30. Jeffrey Hinton, the founder of AI, is 10%. It's pretty crazy, right? It's a really ridiculous statistic that I think a lot of people are not really looking at. But anyway, glad you asked it. I think it's a really, really depressing thing to think about, but really cool.
Yeah, I was hoping for some motivation, someone being very low and trying to convince me they were good, but yeah, thanks. But that's kind of the introduction to what we want to get into. Where is centralized AI currently? And does decentralized AI have a role? So let's start with centralized AI. Maybe Jarrod and Mark, you can paint a picture where AI currently is in a centralized place, and then we move towards decentralized AI.
Go ahead, unless you want to kick it off.
I'll just speak a little. So centralized AI at the moment, I think we're all pretty familiar, right? We have a couple of really powerful big tech companies building pretty incredible large language models, heavily generalized, trained on effectively all of the human data that's out there. And they're getting increasingly capable, right? Every year we seem to be seeing a later release, and that release is increasingly more intelligent, somewhat exponentially more intelligent, at least exponentially more expensive to train. So we're entering this state of exponential improvement within AI that's pretty incredible and pretty difficult to keep track of. What was impossible yesterday is seemingly possible today. What's possible a year from now is incredibly difficult to predict. And the power that is gravitating to these centralized AI providers is pretty extreme. Even if you just forget about the capability of AI and you just think about the way that these companies need to manage their own perception through the public interaction with their products, right? They're profit-driven entities. They don't want someone building an OpenAI bomb, right? Because ChatGPT showed them how to do it. So they censor their models, and that censorship has bias, right? And that bias has real-world impact, right? If you ask OpenAI, its opinion on something somewhat politically charged, right? Maybe something to do with immigration or something to do with, trans rights or anything that you can imagine being a difficult conversation, it has an incredibly difficult time giving you an answer, or it gives you an answer that has the flavor of the people that programmed it to respond in that way. So I think it's a increasingly scary space, just not necessarily from a p-doom perspective, but just from a centralization of power perspective.
Yeah, and I'll be brief here and pass it to our other panelists. I think of three words when I consider centralized AI. The first is speed. if you think of the pace of innovation, particularly in the past 24 months, if you just look outside looking in, it's actually quite outstanding. I think it's really, really incredible, the speed at which the industry is moving. But the second is really concentration. And when you think about anything that is centralized, you introduce single points of failure, right? If you've ever seen Twitter when ChatGPT is down, it's like there's this universal panic because we can't query GPT-4. And really, when you also think about the dangers of centralization, as Mark alluded to, not only in bias, but also in even more of a meta question of what is truth? Because the last word that I think about in terms of centralized AI is distribution, and just how embedded AI is in our day to day. There are things that I am excited about with Apple Intelligence and having Siri being more intelligent, but there are also things that do make me very anxious and very nervous with AI being that embedded in my day to day. So that's really what I think about when you think about centralized AI. Either of you have perspectives? Jump in.
Yeah, I'll probably add one more word to the picture of centralized AI, which is unfair. If you think about a lot of products we're using right now, if they're free, you're the product itself, right? Especially coming from, I guess, Ocean and Masa being very data focused in the AI world. We see user data really getting abused by centralized AI players. And we see a lot of data deals from publications, from social platforms, centralized platforms, and selling user data to large AI company. We think that the inequality that we're seeing in the big tech versus people world is only going to get accelerated in the big AI versus people world.
And I guess I fully agree with everything that you said, but one more thing would probably be inaccessibility of compute too, because surely it is prone to biases, so that gives safety issues. But on the other side, really compute on these huge large language models, it's really inaccessible for few people. So decentralization and decentralizing all the components of AI should also help on that side.
Thank you. I think the problems in centralized AI are clear. Like we have concentration of power, lots of centralization in general, compute resources, financial. We have zero ownership of users. Is decentralized AI a result out of these problems? Is this why it's coming currently, why everyone is building, or was this always supposed to happen in parallel?
I don't think it was always meant to happen. I think that in many ways it doesn't make sense to decentralize AI, right? AI benefits so much from centralization, centralization of capital to pay for all of the expensive things you need, centralization of compute. We know that co-located compute is necessary for large language model training, access to data. I mean, the data moats that companies like Google have, and it's there's such a benefit to centralization. But as we said, this kind of collection of power, the centralization of powers, is really kind of imbuing this resistance, I think, through decentralized AI as people look to challenge what is normal, and also, hopefully open the door for more builders to access what's necessary to create within this AI space and build cool and competitive things outside the walled gardens of kind of big tech.
I think if you look at the history of software, prior to social, there was a relatively low incentive to monetize over ads, right? And so as you think about algorithms and where AI has shown up pre-LLMs, it was a lot of times just in ad-based business models. And on the other end of the spectrum, if you think about the business of open source, there is so much power there, but incredibly hard to monetize, right? So you see kind of these two ends of the spectrum. One is kind of closed source, centralization, profit-driven. The other is open and really focused on distributing to the masses and essentially many owners contributing to a network. But there is a bit of a gray in the middle. And that's ultimately where we believe decentralized AI was really born from is, hey, this is in the open, but this is also monetizable and something that truly can scale and allow you to earn from that. So a lot of power there for sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning open source, because I think one of the biggest features of the Web3 culture is really building open source for many reasons. And if you're also thinking about open sourcing models, if all these big large language models were open source, that would really spur innovation across different smaller models that are more cultural oriented, and much easier to train, sometimes even more accurate, less resource intensive, and fully traceable on chain with provenance. So if really the open source models were made open source, the spread of knowledge and really innovation would be much faster than it is now. And Web3 really allows this, back to decentralized compute, back to self-sovereign identities and data, and all the stack really is there for these smaller ones. Now, can we run large language models on chain? Not really, but will the technology improve? Probably yes.
Yeah, I want to plus one. That's a great point with what I call specialized data. Specialized data leads to specialized results and leads to an edge that you have in the AI world. And taking a massive step back, I think in the history of crypto, I have seen three super narratives. The first one being Bitcoin. Bitcoin is trying to rewrite gold standard, right? Becoming the digital gold. And then you have the Ethereum-led ecosystem, which is trying to program money, change how we think about money and money movement. I really see the world of decentralized AI as the third super narrative that is going to mature in the next few crypto cycles, in the next 7 years, 10 years or so. Unlike the first two super narratives of Bitcoin and Ethereum I just mentioned, for the first time ever, we have an opportunity to build in parallel with our centralized player. It's centralized AI versus decentralized AI right now. We're at a crossroads. Obviously, we're not in an advantageous position with the amount of resources that OpenAI and the likes have been gathering, but we do have an opportunity to, for the first time, build in parallel.
Thank you. Still doesn't work, huh? Something that we didn't mention explicitly, but it is inherent in the Doom question, is AI alignment, AI safety. Is this actually addressed within decentralized AI?
No, unfortunately not. We don't know how to kind of do real alignment yet. It's funny, like for those of you that maybe don't know much about AI, AI has essentially been training itself for since day one, since your boss wrote that paper, right? Transformer-based models have been learning and growing, and effectively they're just this big ball of kind of floating point numbers, and we don't know how to read it. Like only AI knows how to read it. All we know is that if we add more GPUs and we throw more data, right, it gets more intelligent when we ask it questions. It's essentially not possible to say, for example, pull out the piece that is related to building a nuke, right? Or pull out the piece related to being racist, right? It's effectively just a big blob of information that we can't read. And as a result of that, it's effectively impossible at the moment for us to go in and tell it what to do or not to do. Right now we have guardrails, right? That's why you can't ask OpenAI ChatGPT a question that it doesn't want you to answer. But also as a result of that, you have all of these kind of jailbreaks that happen where people kind of go and tell ChatGPT that it'll get a dog biscuit if it answers a question that it's not allowed to, and then all of a sudden you learn how to make napalm, right? So it's a funny space, but alignment's a difficult challenge.
It is, and I'll allow these two folks to expand more because they know way more about me on the data side, but I do think it actually starts with the data, right? Because at the end of the day, a model is only as good as the data in which it's been trained on. And I think one of the challenges is we started with, and let's just take GPT-4, for example, right? Trained on 13 trillion tokens, scraped the entire internet, right? For its data set. The data set is the entire internet, which probably is maybe 1 to 5% of all data in the world, but it's still a lot of data. And that may, even while that's a great value for the model, it also can be quite problematic because we just included everything. And yes, you can create guardrails, and it's reactive, right? And so I'm sure these folks can expand more on specialized data as well, so I'll pass it to them.
Yeah, I think my point really goes back to specialized data, which, yeah, I'm not gonna be really on it.
Yeah, we'll probably just share an example of a specialized data with those in the audience who are not super familiar with the concept. So if you think about what Jarrod just said, ChatGPT 4 was trained on the entire internet of data. First of all, static, not real time, very important one, because if you go back home, ask your ChatGPT or Anthropic like a question that is very relevant this morning, it may not be able to answer you. It's going to tell you that, hey, my data import is only till like, I don't know, exactly, December 31st, 2023, et cetera, et cetera. So real-time data, very important. To the point of specialized data, I'll give you an example. If it's a specific dialect in southern India, that's a very specific specialized data category that you can build with the support of specialized model with specialized data contributors from the region or understand that specialty. I know I said special many times, but just wanted to give you an example of a specialized data category. This is where the power of open source and decentralized AI really showcase in the long term.
Thank you. And I know I'm a downer with my questions, but someone that got into crypto because of the ethos, specifically decentralization and verifiability, I do look at the AI movement a bit critically, because what I see is we have on-chain jobs that get sent off-chain. There we have fantastic computation, super powerful models, intelligence, and we really want to use this AI intelligence to connect the on-chain world. But whatever happens off-chain is kind of a black box, and we're lacking this verifiability. How do you guys see this?
Yeah, sorry for monopolizing so much mic time. I normally sit over there. But I mean, it's a great question, right? Verifiable compute is a really difficult challenge to overcome. Compute, like we mentioned before, you can't train models on chain yet. Maybe you can in the future. Maybe solutions like some new chain can execute. Maybe evolutions of what you guys are building can solve it. But right now we can't, so we have to do it off chain. That means, particularly in environments where you have distributed ownership of compute, right? You don't have one person that owns all of the compute, so you can't guarantee natively that, okay, everyone that says they're contributing in H100 is actually contributing in H100, right? I think crypto is famous for spoofing things and saying there's something when they're not, to kind of try and drain tokens from a network. So it's a challenge. At Aethir, we have a specific role that we've fully decentralized. We've offered it up to the community. We sold licenses. It was our node sale that many people saw. And effectively, you purchased a license to operate as a checker within our network. And that is essentially the police force, this separation of police and state, right? The policemen of the network are our community that run these programs on their computers, or they offload it to a node as a service provider. And that program is constantly pulse checking the network, constantly kind of confirming, okay, you said you're this, are you actually this? You said you did this, did you actually do it? If you actually did it, did you record it correctly, right? And then based on that, kind of validating and ensuring that the network is pretty secure and that any bad actors are being removed. Because without it, like you said, it's incredibly difficult to kind of manage what this black box off-chain is.
Such great points, and I'll be brief. I think the wedge in which we have seen from a near perspective is simply just by starting with verification of the data set and verifying what exactly a model has been trained on. A lot of times if you think about how does this become real, if you've ever needed to go see a doctor, how did you choose which specific doctor to go to? Well, you trusted the reviews, you trusted perhaps a referral, you trusted what a hospital system said about a specific doctor, right? And why is it important to verify a data set? Well, that is ultimately what informs the model and ultimately what can impact trust around a decision. There's a large spectrum of privacy solutions from ZKML to OPML to more things that are like a bit tensor-like that use leverage crypto economics. Won't get too deep into that, but a lot of opportunity to grow that as an area.
And it's interesting that you mentioned ZKML and ZKOP because that's also a question that I was going to ask you. It was, how can you verify? There's so many different ways of verifying, right? And if you're looking at Bitcoin proof of work, slashing mechanisms are not necessarily slashing directly with Bitcoin, but like the incentive game is also a way that is really tied to people. And so people generally don't really want to lose money. So if you use that approach to verification, I know that we can't really run large language models on chain, but what you can do is you can ensure that people are losing money if they're malicious actors. And so, for example, at Ocean, we have Ocean Predictor, and it's actually running on Oasis. And what we do is we do accountable, accurate prediction feeds. And by accountable, that means that if you're providing a prediction feed that is inaccurate, you're accountable for inaccuracy. And so one way to verify is also introducing slashing mechanisms.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the defining features of the crypto world is really how to use token incentive to best align interests, right? And to your point earlier, I think that's exactly how you can improve, well, indefinitely improve, but cannot be 100% sure about the verification part. Just earlier today, Masa announced that we're launching a BitTensor subnet. And Jarrod, you also mentioned BitTensor and how it is using the game theory-based incentive mechanism to try to increase performance and utility production on the network. For example, on the Masa BitTensor subnet, there are only 256 miner slots, and it is getting ranked in real time. So at any point in time, only the top 256 performance on the miner network will be able to get rewards from Masa. That is a really clever way of only rewarding and promoting best behavior and the highest amount of utilities being produced. I know it doesn't completely solve the question you asked for, but it can indefinitely improve on it.
I'll answer your question with the risk of losing some of the audience. So currently, our expertise is obviously TEs, trusted execution environments based on Intel SGX CPUs. So computation happens within the CPU, so you can keep it confidential and choose what comes out of it. So we go to the hardware level, and the same is what we're trying to do now with ML compute. For ML, obviously CPUs won't be enough, so we're looking into Intel TDX plus GPUs like H100s, where we have great partners like Aethir, to explore this further, to have like proper TE-ML where you can have like SGX plus or TDX plus GPUs in a secure enclave in a trusted execution environment. So you can make sure that no one saw the data and you can choose kind of the level of confidentiality that comes out of it. That's our approach. And to end on a more positive note, where do you see still opportunities in decentralized AI? What can we still do? What's exciting you these days?
Maybe really short term, I'm excited about AI agents operating on chain. I think that we've created this kind of weird mess in Web3 of layer ones, layer twos, layer threes, right? Bridges, new coins and things happening somewhere that you've never navigated to before. And I think a really great solution that we're going to start seeing in the Web3 space over the next probably like 3 to 6 months will be agents that help us navigate that complexity. And I think that the Web3 world, post-complexity is a really interesting space. Like we're not going to be post-cost, right? There's always going to be that gas fee and that transaction cost to get where you want to go. But it'll become really simple to get there. And that'll be super cool. Just say, hey, I want my USDT on this chain, right? And it'll just get you what you want there. So I think it's almost difficult to imagine Web3 post-complexity, but we're going to be there pretty soon.
Very much agree on the agent space, and we're also part of that mess being in L1. But very much agree on agents as an area of opportunity. There's a team called Nevermind that's building on Near. They are focused on agent payments, and essentially being the payments protocol or PayPal of Web3, specifically for agents. And so what does that mean? How does that actually show up? They really leverage blockchain as a backend, more of a Web 2.5 use case. But imagine you gave your agent $100 and you tell your agent, hey, you know my favorite taste in clothes. Go ahead and buy a new outfit for me and have it shipped and delivered to my house. That agent communicates with another agent to complete that transaction, has it shipped to your house. That's a really interesting use case that leverages blockchain as a backend, takes away the complexities of the user, all while being able to transact on chain. These are the things that we get excited about. Obviously, there's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of agent orchestration and organization mechanisms that need to be built in order for that to happen. But these are the things, as we think about the pace of innovation, that can be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I'll be boring and agree on the AI agent side. I think it's a funny situation because we're probably going to have like AI agents as UBI, where maybe 3 to 5 years down the line, you're going to have your AI agent running your tasks, and then you can just go on holiday, you know, and just do like what actually is fun to do. But I think AI agents, there's going to be infrastructure players that are going to be focusing on ZK, ZKL, ZKML, and then on the other side, there's going to be like a consumer end facing side of businesses that are really going to be deploying AI agents for almost everything.
Yeah. Beware, maybe all of us are AI agents sitting in front of you right now. You never know, you never know. I think AI agents are mentioned plenty, so I'll probably tackle one thing. For all of us who are in Web3, I think we're sometimes afforded the luxury of thinking big, of looking at the long term. But I really hope that in the next year or two, we're able to produce more utility and applications to the world to the extent that if we walk into a Web2 AI developer happy hour in San Francisco, people are not going to ask us, what is decentralized AI? Exactly why we need blockchain for AI. Instead, they will be using our product, using the compute, using the data, using the great infrastructure that we have presented today. So that's my hope.
I think Mark and I are afraid it's going to be a permanent holiday, but let's look forward to it. Maybe one more thing from me. I'm really excited about the gaming space actually. Like once you think about text to video, once you implement this into gaming, you can have like super custom worlds. And we always used to make fun of NPCs. I don't think they're going to be that stupid anymore. No one is kicking us from the stage, so you get 20 seconds to shill whatever you want.
Cool. Definitely check out the Aethir Edge. Right, so we have this new consumer mining device. You can purchase it. It sits in your home, operates as an enterprise-grade AI edge node within the Aethir network, and we push workloads to it, and it passively does that work on your behalf, and you earn rewards. It's super cool. You can check it out at myedge.io. Think of it like a helium-type box, but for compute, and it gives you the chance to own a piece of AI infrastructure and do kind of really cool work and earn rewards as a result, just totally passively. So check it out, myedge.io.
Amazing. I rarely have the opportunity to show, but since I have the mic, if you are still around on Thursday, we at Near have been very much focused on shipping products. So we're actually having our incubation demo day of teams that we've been working with over the past few months that are building key components of our infrastructure. There's been a lot of panels, a lot of presentations, but Thursday for us will be all about products. So if you're interested in seeing some of the use cases that are coming out of the Near ecosystem, come join us. It'll be at 12. I can share more info offline.
And I'll be brief. And we've been speaking about incentives and how incentives are important for decentralized AI. We've just announced a few months ago, probably the largest token merge in crypto. We merged with 2 other projects. It's called Artificial Superintelligence. And the main objective is really to bring an incentive alignment across different communities and work really much tighter together as opposed to being, following our own visions.
Dropping some alpha here. As I mentioned earlier, Masa earlier today just announced our Masa BitTensor subnet. If you're not familiar with BitTensor, you only need to remember one number, which is every day on a 24-hour basis, they emit around $2 million worth of emission across the entire network. Now with Masa, we become the first live token on the BitTensor ecosystem. What does that mean? Once we go live on mainnet, you as a miner or validator will be able to earn double rewards in both Masa and Tau, which is really exciting. So I did not pay him to do this, but you should all check out, go to our Twitter, get Masafy, and you'll be able to see more details.
Thank you. We good?
Thank you, man. Thank you. It was fun. Thank you. Yeah. The other mic died?
Yes. Never.
Hello. This works. I don't know why they didn't use it. Yeah. Okay, so this works. But Lola. Okay, so the volume for this one is really low.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know which.
Leave it. We can pass it around.
Okay, if you hold it close, like it works.
I'm gonna have this one. Okay. Yeah. So this is for the panel. This is for me. Can you hear me well? I need to hold this one really close to my mouth. I'm gonna be like a rapper, something like that. Yeah. Can I get a whoop whoop? No, I'm joking. Yeah, I think this is the last one of the day. We have a great panel here. Oh shit. There's also this. I'm covering probably your mic, but no worries. We talked about AI, but there's also a second trend I think that's very popular now in crypto, and that's RWAs, so real world assets. And we have a great panel here of people building on different stuff that kind of tie into that. So I'm gonna let each and every one of you to present a little bit yourself and the project you're working on, and then we can dive in deeper into what are RWAs and what we can do with them in crypto. So yeah, Dennis, please start.
Hey, my name is Dennis. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Midas. We're an asset tokenization business focused on stablecoins and particularly on T-bills and a tokenized basis trading strategy. Midas really allows you to earn yield on your stablecoin holdings. So you can think of it as USDC or USDT, however you actually earn the underlying yield. And in terms of the technical functionality, it's a permissionless ERC20 token, so you can transact with it, you can yield farm with it, you can go on DeFi, peer-to-peer transactions, and the full stack. Great to meet everyone.
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, I think that's crucial when you say permissionless, where basically, even though it's a real-world asset, it's completely tradable within the crypto ecosystem, right?
Of course, if you have permissioned assets, you might as well not worry about putting it onto the blockchain in the first place. Otherwise, it gives very few functionalities and composability across different chains.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. Albert?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Albert. I'm one of the co-founders of deltaDAO, and we build decentralized data spaces for enterprises with a special focus on the European market right now. We just created our own paradigm because we want to create actually the full stack, meaning from infrastructure to backend to actual user interfaces. And we are working with big companies like Airbus and others, and they have very high demands in terms of compliance. So very excited to learn more about in this panel on how to deal with this. As our tokens right now, they are completely soul-bound. We can't transfer them. And we want to learn how to actually change this in the near future.
Hey guys, my name is Jeff. I lead Enterprise BD at Axelar Network. Axelar is a interoperability network. It's the most decentralized interoperability network in this space today. We're a blockchain ourselves built on the Cosmos SDK, connect something like 75 different chains across the EVM Cosmos and working on the Solanas, Suis of the world. And we focus on a few different use cases, but I would say RWAs and stablecoins are one that we are very focused on and are working with a bunch of the top players and hope to be working with some of the people on this panel as well.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Antoine here, head of BD at Euler Labs. So we're building Euler Finance, which is a decentralized lending protocol, launching very soon. And obviously we have a huge interest in RWAs because you can expect the vast majority of RWAs ranging from stables to T-bills to other really cool products to be used as collateral, and then maybe one day also lent out on Euler. So super excited to discuss with all of you here.
Thank you for the quick presentations. So yeah, if we get into it, right? So RWAs stem from the real world, right? From the Web 2 or how we call it. And we can see, when Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock says, let's tokenize everything, right? We can already see that there's a lot of interest from that side in utilizing blockchain, to basically facilitate trading, to enable, 24/7 trading, more permissionless trading. And I want to hear from you guys what you find under the definition of real-world assets, because I think we have a quite diverse panel. So we spoke about a little about TBOs and all that, but can you kind of talk us through what are real-world assets in crypto?
I mean, you can think of it as any type of asset that existed before blockchain was invented and that has some sort of value, right? But to come back on Larry Fink's sentence, like, I don't really agree on that. I mean, for me, and I've been looking at the space of tokenization for a while, I like to compare tokenization to the MP3 standard, right? So when you put a song, and when MP3 was invented, you put a song on MP3, of course it was easier to send to people and to share, but it's not because a song was on MP3 that it became popular all of a sudden. Like if nobody likes that song, whether it's on MP3, on vinyl or CD or whatnot, it's still gonna be unpopular. And I think it's the same thing with tokenization. So, you know, what should be tokenized are assets that are liquid, that have demand for it, and then we can do all of these cool things around transferring them in an easier way, having composability, lending them out, borrowing, etc. So very curious to see what you guys think of that as well.
Yeah, so I actually tend to agree with you. I think that not everything will be tokenized. I think there's specific types of assets that it makes sense to be tokenized on chain, and there's a lot that it doesn't make sense for, right? So if you think about, you know, looking at financial assets only, there's, you know, treasuries. Like that, to me, that makes a lot of sense because you can, there's efficiencies that you can get by bringing it on the blockchain. You can compose, you can borrow against these assets. There's additional functionality that you get by bringing it on chain. I think for stuff like, not to pick on any specific category, but like tokenized.
Do it.
Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, like tokenized like commodities or something. I think it's a little bit harder to see like what that use case is because some of the markets for this in TradFi are quite liquid.
But when you said commodities, right, do you think we can go from the paper gold back to physical gold through blockchain? Or, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot, or silver, I think. There's a lot more silver being traded on paper than there's actually physically, right? So
yeah, for sure. But I would also think, you know, maybe you also have to look at like the market that you're currently serving. You know, like I would say most people in crypto right now are not that interested in like tokenized gold, right? They're probably interested in Bitcoin as gold, right? And so there's definitely a spectrum of the types of assets that are going to come on chain. I think some definitely belong, some, you know, maybe are a little bit further out. And if you look at like tokenized gold as an asset, it's actually not a ton of demand on chain, but you know, for this asset right now.
Yeah, Albert, you probably have a different view on real world assets from your perspective.
At least I want to broaden this, what kind of assets we can actually tokenize. So for us, for example, we are dealing with data spaces. What we are tokenizing right now is data sets and algorithms. We talked to the regulatory authorities in Europe, so we were part of the first cohort of the European Commission. We will look into actually blockchain regulation for Europe. And we talked to the big regulators, and they all warned us to make sure that actually tokenizing, let's say, data assets or so don't fall under MiCA so that they become a security. Because then we would lose all the advantages of actually creating these data spaces where you actually get a token, which is basically right now just an access token to this data set, to this algorithm, whatever. So basically we actually called it a voucher, if you want. So this was the easiest way to explain it to them. But for the next step, this is where we are looking to tokenizing, for example, computation. If we really manage to actually open up like all the providers of computation, you could think of buying computational tokens and then selling them for a better market value later. So these are things where you could imagine tokenizing might be interesting. But for now, this is all way too far away for us. This is something for the next maybe 5+ years, at least in our field. So for now, I'm happy enough that we have actually tokenized access to data sets.
Final comments I would add to the great insights in the conversation here is that probably real-world assets are the most important tool in order to make blockchains actually useful. When you think what actually has product market fits, within the industry, you actually think of stablecoins, and stablecoins really are the first original real-world asset. It's used at large scales. There's like $200 billion in circulation used across the world, and actually solve real-world use cases like making payments in emerging markets and other ways. So I think that's a super important point to remember. Real-world assets, actually stablecoins, were the first product market fit in the industry, and obviously any kind of yield-bearing stablecoins are a natural extension of this. So you have treasury-backed fungible tokens that can be traded just like stablecoins that give you the underlying yield. That have, from the technical perspective, no huge difference. From a regulatory perspective, they do have quite a big difference. And that's a really important point I would make across.
One thing that Albert brought up here, and I think it's worth discussing, is the tokenization itself, right? MiCA regulation, all that, right? So how do you how do you tokenize an asset and still remain in that compliant way, or maybe is there a limit to how far you want to go in serving all the compliance stuff, and then where you continue following the, let's say, the crypto ethos, right? Because with real world assets, you already have regulation, right? And just putting it on chain, it's a question how much value then it can bring, right, for certain assets, as you mentioned, right? So what are the challenges here around tokenization? And do you think that we can actually eliminate, because I know Midas probably uses custodials, issuers, a lot of intermediaries to be able to bring this T-bills on chain, right? So how to find a path where we can actually change a little bit, also the structure on the real world side to enable like a more streamlined issuance of real world assets on chain?
You're touching on the wonderful topics of regulatory compliance and legal topics that I have the pleasure to be spending most of my waking hours with, and also pay a lot of lawyers a lot of money. On that topic, I think ideally you have companies abstracting for the complexity. So there's Circle doing it for Dollar, there's Tether doing it for Dollar, there's Midas doing it for T-bills and others. And ideally you have companies focusing on the complexity and really abstract it from the user experience. There's a lot of topics, obviously, broadly speaking. You think about assets as securities, commodities, or cash or currencies, or cash likes. And I think really funny observation. It's easier for you to mint a meme coin and to transact with it globally and not worry about regulation too much. But actually, if you put a treasury bill on chain, it's a highly secure, trusted counterparty. You fall into the traps of a lot of regulatory issues. So the SEC and other regulators will look at it with a lot of care. But I would say for the conversation of this, I would pass on the mic and go not in too much detail of this, and we can extend it over a drink later.
Yeah, and you can pass it on. I'm curious, mainly, let's say if we touch on real estate, right? You have a house, right? Can you tokenize it in a way that you don't have to deal with a lot of, I don't know, land authorities, all of that, right? And make it more, let's say, more native in air quotes, right?
Yeah. So real estate, all due respect to the projects focused on it, it's an extremely hard area to tokenize. The deed of a land in itself sort of falls into very different categories. I also think the use case of this is actually very difficult, because when you look at the spectrum from fungible to non-fungible, it's extremely far on the non-fungible side, and you really maybe don't even want to trade this liquidly because people want to live there, and maybe the front door is broken or the windows aren't up to date. So the complexity of tokenizing real estate is really high. I think actually our colleagues at deltaDAO make some really interesting work on tokenizing certain real world assets, like compute, which is obviously a physical good. Physical goods are not securities. Physical goods tend to be commodities in that space. And a lot of exciting, really, physical goods such as GPUs or hash rate machines that I think a lot of people would like to access. And maybe you want to transfer hashing Bitcoin miner in an NFT, for example. There's a lot of interesting things you can do. But largely speaking today, I think when you look at the total value locked on any particular blockchain, you find that the dollar-denominated assets are the most widely used, most widely understood, and they're used for, largely speaking, speculative activity on DeFi markets, but also increasingly so for transactions in emerging markets.
Yeah, Albert, can you share a little bit more, and then you guys will...
Happy to do so, because our specialty is not in tokenizing any assets. So what you just said, actually, we want other companies to solve this problem for us, so that we can just apply it into our field. Because right now, if we present this to companies and there is just the risk or the clarity that this might be a security or something else, and they might fall under any regulation because they're issuing something, in our case a data token, and then they just say from the very beginning, no, we don't do this, and then the discussion is already closed. So you lose them from the very first meeting. So when we're meeting with big clients like Airbus and so on, there's nothing that we can offer them, because we must actually pinpoint how other companies are already doing this successfully, and then they might consider this. They are very slow to follow along. So we need to best use case, or like example use case, and other companies implementing this before we can even think about this.
Yeah, is Axelar in any way even liable, where you're just more like a transfer protocol? Are you able to just offset that to the application layer?
So this is actually something that we have thought a lot about, and we've spoken to regulators about this topic as well. So I think part of the ethos of building on blockchains and the kind of complexity with some of these tokenized assets is that they are like essentially custodied assets, right? There's some sort of like centralization, but you're building on decentralized infrastructure. So like there's a little bit of a tension there. I think with Axelar, how we think about interoperability and the role that we play in this system is that we are kind of building open decentralized infrastructure. So we are a proof of stake chain, and we kind of liken ourselves to building on something like Ethereum or these like public ecosystems, right? When you use an Axelar, you're using an open permissionless network where there's 75 validators that help to validate the network, and all the transactions that go through are validated by a group of people. We don't actually control any of it. And so when we talk to regulators, they actually kind of like this model because it makes us like not a money transmitter, right? We are open decentralized infrastructure just like Ethereum, and then when we kind of compare ourselves and put it in that kind of mental model, they actually understand and they like that about us.
That's good to hear, yeah. Maybe if you add on the similar topic, Antoine.
Yeah, I mean, about compliance and regulation, I think just high-level regulators should focus on making tokenization not, even more complicated than a normal transfer. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, we entered with my previous company, the FCA sandbox in the UK. Actually, tokenizing an asset was even worse because you were subject to securities law and crypto AML compliance law, so it just didn't make sense. But if I just look at it from the point of view of Euler, we really focus on always giving the option to the builders on Euler to create compliant markets, and you can actually do that in a couple of clicks and have compliance features and specifications of your pool of your market that match the jurisdiction where you are and where the potential lenders and borrowers are located and the type of the asset. So yeah, it's something that is inherent to Euler by design, and we're really looking forward to have these permission and compliant markets out there for the main use case of RWAs, by the way, right? Like when these are lent out or put as collateral. So yeah, stay tuned, and from day one you'll be able to see that.
That's good here. That's good here. One thing you touched on with the custodial, non-custodial nature, right, or permissionless and custodial. I think it's interesting here where you always kind of have the custodial part. And what would you say? Does that enhance the security of the whole thing, or how does it influence it, right? Because let's say something on-chain happens, right, but the on-chain token is just a representation of the off-chain asset, right? So how do you kind of go into the permissionless aspect of it, but at the same time you have the capacity to do something about it because it's a representation. It's not like a hard asset like Bitcoin, let's say.
Yeah. So I would say I don't think there's like a right answer to this. I think there's a lot of different implementations and different ways that companies have tried to solve this. I think maybe there's like a few examples. So one is asset issuers can issue in different ways. One way that we've seen is pretty popular is they'll do native issuance on a bunch of different chains. By doing this, it allows the company to own to have ownership and control over the actual asset, and then they use something like an interoperability network to connect these different issuances, right? So this is very similar to what like USDC does today with like CCTP or yeah. So that's one model. I think that the other thing that is being explored is different like tokenization standards and making them compliant with like off-chain and like the real world, right? So if you look at I would say if you look at like Tokeny or like the standard that like Centrifuge and Maple are doing together, they are working with regulators and kind of thinking about like the traditional financial framework, bringing that stuff on chain and then making it compliant such that the on chain and off chain elements are interoperable, and they use something like an Axelar to make that interoperable as well.
not for you, Albert.
you can attach property rights, terms and conditions, legal certainty to tokens, just like you can do to any paper certificates. So a token itself is a digital representation of a contract that two parties form. And there's actually a lot of legal systems that give you regulatory clarity on this. For example, MiCA is going to have EMTs, the electronic money tokens. These EMTs actually are equivalent to cash, so this is real money that's tokenized. So it's just one example where a regulatory regime has actually gone and given clarity on what tokens are. There's opportunities in this, there's costs with it. The costs are mostly legal costs, very expensive to comply with these requirements, but really there's regulatory frameworks that allow you to give legal certainty to tokens. Then in practice, there's other things you can do to enhance the security. At Midas, for example, we separate the assets in a bankruptcy remote vehicle, and this is where the token holders have claim on. If there was anything to happen with the operations of the company or any individuals, there's an independent third party, a regulated trust company, a regulated trust that effectively acts on behalf of the token holders to ensure the assets are there. It's actually typical securitization structures that you see in traditional finance as well, and how many of the largest trusts in the world are structured. So I think there's a lot you can do on the legal certainty and also in the actual practice of operating such a business that you can do enhance stability. Yeah.
So my question is more on can then a real asset be completely decentralized and permissionless, or will there be always that certain entity that has that control over issuance?
I thought about this actually in the past quite a bit. I think you can make it decentralized if you really wish to. There's things you can do in order to create incentive mechanisms to decentralize it. But the real problem is around decentralization in this specific case that it conflicts with capital efficiency. So over-collateralized stablecoins are a very good example of this. The model of DAI or LUSD, there are stablecoins that derive their value from collateral assets that's been locked in there. You can actually do the same thing by have a decentralized pool where everyone contributes assets in a similar fashion. But the problem is that it creates inefficiency in the way it is structured. So effectively, decentralization is at the other spectrum of capital efficiency. And when you look at actually what people want, they want $1 for one token, and they want one T-bill for one T-bill. So capital efficiency is important, and capital efficiency here can only be achieved with centralized issues. So you keep the ledger decentralized, and everyone accesses to it equally, but on an issue level, the capital efficiency is really the key thing. But it's possible to decentralize issues as well if you want to. We can talk about details of that.
No, I mean, that's my question here is more on is efficient to decentralize everything, like similar to how DAOs, I think, to an extent went back to, I mean, we saw, not they went back, but we saw the inefficiencies in DAOs as well, right? And why we do have corporate structures, because through time we saw that corporate structures, in a sense, are efficient, right? That you cannot have a fully distributed system. So that's why my question was, does it make sense to create this in a fully decentralized manner? And maybe to an extent it's not, right? So it's better to have a compromise where you have it in a ledger that is visible, but at the same time there is some control to help with the efficiency, right?
Yeah, I think on the spectrum, you can try to optimize the decentralization, but when you override capital efficiency and you really want to optimize to get trust minimization, so there's sufficient amount of minimization of trust that you require in order to hold this asset. So for example, I mentioned the security agent, the trust structure, all of these things that put in place to have independent verticals where people can then trust that the assets are actually there. Assets are independently verified by auditors and other structures. So I think these are good enough compromise. When you actually look at what people want, you look at data in the market, you can actually learn quite a lot. USDT is the largest stablecoin in circulation, $100 billion in circulation on Tron and other blockchains. Now, when you look at it, actually, you can read in the market that people maybe don't necessarily care as much about decentralization for this specific vehicle, but rather want a token that's efficient. And maybe for the transparency, for the property rights, all these things are not as important as the availability, the price tag. I think these are all considerations for the actual user.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm not going to prolong it too much more because we've been going for a bit, but let's start from the end. And the last question is from my side is basically Just a short, future prospect. Well, how do you see it? What's the next step? We see a lot of ETFs coming up, tokenizing TBOs. I don't know, maybe the stock market is next to be tokenized to enable 24/7 trading, so you don't have after-hour trading, or pre-trading hours. What's the take here? Or maybe Albert, you have a completely different one when it comes to the future of it.
I mean, I'm just going to look at it from our perspective, from the perspective of lending. If I had to say what's next for RWAs, it would be more a recommendation to the industries, like let's take it easy and focus on liquid assets that are well priced, so that we can have efficient, lending markets on top of them, right? So everything around T-bills, currencies, stocks, actually, in my view, even commodities, because you have very efficient secondary markets there. So the assets can be put as collateral and can have efficient liquidations. I think if we all focus on that, then the RWA space can really, really grow. All the other really cool use cases, by the way, of tokenizing real estate or credit funds, private equity funds, and so on and so forth, definitely need to come. But I think we first need to focus on the liquid assets, and then at some point we can democratize the access to all of these super fancy and hard to access asset classes.
Yeah, so I guess we can agree to disagree on the commodities thing. I think it's mostly, I think it's like a push and a pull, right? So for the push, you have projects like Midas and kind of interesting projects that are bringing stuff on chain where they are bringing in assets that have product market fit, right? There's a reason you bring them on chain, there's efficiencies that you get over traditional markets, et cetera. So that will continue to innovate, and I think, projects like you guys are both of you are great at pushing that forward. And then on the pull side, you have projects like BlackRock, where there's actually like a business function or a business improvement that you get from bringing stuff on chain. I think projects like Midas, again, will kind of force the hand, right? So BlackRock, part of the BUIDL product, I think, is because they see competition in tokenized treasuries and they want to launch a similar product to take market share, right? So it's a little bit of a push and pull. I think we see both kind of like startups that are building interesting things and large financial institutions coming in. But I think at some point, we'll see a little bit of a convergence, and I think it's already starting to happen.
So you're predicting a battle for Midas. Maybe they need to start. They're gonna need to rename to Black Midas. You have BlackRock, Blackstone, or it's maybe it doesn't sound the best.
Yeah, for us, what we are experiencing is we have a focus on big enterprise now to actually open this data economy that we are trying to build with others together. But at the same time, in Europe alone, we have over 24 million small to medium-sized enterprises. And they don't even know how to handle a private key. And usually they don't know what a wallet is exactly and how to deal with it. So they have a lot to learn before they can even think about holding any assets. And of course, even thinking about tokenizing any assets. So for us, this will be the very first step to actually onboard them for the data economy, because I think this is one of the strong forces right now forcing them to do this. If they don't, they will be just out-competed. And once we have them there, I hope other solutions that you guys just mentioned, and also you, will be ready so that we can just pull them into the data economy and just utilize them there, because then the technology is there, but still the onboarding part is missing, and this is what we're doing with others right now.
First, I would reiterate the point from our friends at Euler Finance. Repo markets are one of the most important applications of blockchain. It's the biggest application in DeFi, together with access. And actually, in traditional finance, the largest market in the world, repo markets are massive. A very important application is to get real-world assets on-chain and then put them into repo markets as collateral assets so you can borrow and lend against them. It effectively makes them hyper-liquid assets. You can have your T-bills and you can draw USDC or draw DAI, or you draw USDT from peer-to-peer lending pools, and that in itself is a super important innovation. Actually, when you look at what many other of the banks working on, there's an interesting project with Flag as well. When you look at JP Morgan Onyx, it's actually the exact same application they're working on. They're working on a private chain that effectively focuses on repo markets where we tokenize T-bills and work between banks. That in itself is actually a very, very important application, because the blockchain operates 24/7, and traditional security markets only operate during working days, and the settlement is much later. So you create a lot of efficiency, and I think that's a really, really important use case to focus on. There's many others, but I think the borrowing and lending will be massive in the future, and I think really opens the doors to many other tokenized assets.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think we're good to wrap up. Thank you guys for joining our panel. Thank you for everyone for listening in. I think this is the end of the formal part. So yeah, enjoy some drinks, some food here, and let's chat. Yeah, if you have any more questions, you can find the guys here in the courtyard as well. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, guys.
GPUs.